Hey everybody, Alex from Pratt Printing Press here, and welcome to another special and exciting video. In today's video, I'm actually going to need a little bit of help. So for that purpose, I'm going to call in some reinforcements real quick.
Did someone call for a cup of liberty?
Why, yes. Yes, I did.
Let's talk about that.
All right, well, welcome back to the channel. We're so happy that you're here for today's video. And like you saw in that funny little intro, today I'm not alone. I've actually got my best friend Evan here, who we've known each
How's it
other
going?
for basically our whole lives.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, kind of crazy. So you've seen Evan in the background of some of the videos. You've seen him walking around in his Star-Lord cosplay, and you may or may not have seen him give me a little bit of a pat in the outro video. But here he is for the first time doing actually recorded lines, and we're going to be working on a project together. So, Evan, what are we going to be building together?
Yeah, we're working on our Helldiver suits now, getting ready for
Liberty
and the upcoming Comic-Cons that we got planned. So I think today we're going to be talking about, everything from filing, scaling, and coming up with a finished product, start to finish.
Yep, this is the exciting beginning part of any project where you realize, okay, I have a dream, I have a vision. How do I make that happen? And you got to go from an idea in your head to a 3D model to a printed piece all at the same time.
What's really funny is this just kind of started off as a random text. Hey, man, you want to start a project with me? I kind of said, yeah, and we went from there, kind of planned everything out, what we wanted to do. Now we're making that vision come to life.
Yep, so we're super excited. And let's start by talking about the files.
Yeah.
All right, so we've established our project. We're wanting to build some Helldivers armor. Now we have to decide, where do we start?
Yeah, Alex, it starts with your research. You got to get online and figure out what it is you're exactly trying to do, what materials you're trying to make out of it. There's foam building, there's 3D printing, there's all sorts of different materials that you can do. Now you got to figure out what files you're going to use. Ultimately, we went it's right there on the screen. Ultimately, we went up, that's such a tongue twister. Ultimately, we ended up going with Galactic Armory's Heroes of the Federation 3D print files. This is broken up into smaller pieces, so if you do have a smaller printer or whether you have a larger printer, you can actually slice these pieces together, make them fit to your specific needs.
The wonderful thing about Galactic Armory too is that this is just one of their many armors that they offer. So you could go through there if you want just the classic BO1 tactical armor. They've got that. They've got some wild armors there. They've honestly got stuff that goes beyond just Helldivers too. They do a lot of Helldivers, Star Wars, some Halo, and just completely recommend checking out Galactic Armory and their stuff because they have an awesome website. So that's going to be linked in the description of today's video. Go check them out. Now, for anyone that is new to 3D printing and maybe you guys haven't done a whole lot of 3D printing or you haven't downloaded a whole bunch of files, maybe you're wondering where else you can go. Galactic Armory is a wonderful place to get these files, and they're honestly really affordable for paid files, and they're premium files. They're wonderfully made. Super love that product. But if you don't want to go with Galactic Armory, you don't have to. You can look around, and there's lots of different websites out there. Stuff like Thangs or Colts 3D, Thingiverse, Maker World. You can even go on Etsy sometimes, and you can find some files. Now, I will say you're oftentimes going to get what you pay for. So if you're deciding to go somewhere else and you're looking for maybe a free 3D file, you might not find an entire set of armor. You might have to piece it together. You might find a helmet you like here and a shoulder piece that you like here. So you're going to have to take some time to do your research, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to go with. But for our sake, we decided to go with the Helldivers suit from Galactic Armory. Just want to let you know some other places that you could look in case you are maybe contemplating building your own Helldivers armor. All right, so now you have your files and you're super excited. You have a 3D printer. You're ready to start pumping these things out. Do you start printing these things immediately?
Well, so you run into a problem like I did. I went ahead and spent several days trying to print this piece out on my printer. Yeah, trying to get ahead of the project, right? I set the scaling to 100, printed it off. It took multiple days for it to print, and this is the product I ended up with. It doesn't fit. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of product for me.
I don't know. I think that might look good.
Yeah.
So that brings us to an important part of today's video. Before you start printing stuff out, please, please, please do yourself a favor and try to learn some scaling tips. Where can you find some awesome scaling tips? Well, we're going to give you some in this video. So in all honesty, there's quite a few different ways that you could actually scale your armor. In today's video, we're just going to talk about a few of those, and hopefully you guys glean some wisdom from this, and you're able to save yourself some time and some money on the materials so that you don't have any waste. Believe it or not, this suit here, I didn't use a lot of these tips, and I had to reprint like at least a third of this suit, so scaling is important. The first thing that we're going to talk about today is actually going to be test strings.
Yeah. So this is just a little product you get on your computer and you slice out just a very tiny ring of the project you're actually working on. From there, you print it out. This takes, maybe 15, 20 minutes to print versus several days for the entire project to print. From there, you can actually try it on, see if it fits. Like, does it work for you? This one, maybe it's a little too tight for me right now. I can then scale it up just a little bit more and actually get my size that I need for me.
And remember, when you're playing around with one of these test rings, these are going to be kind of flimsy and weak. So you might be able to kind of wiggle this on, but remember, you're going to have a whole lot more helmet that you're going to be working with here. So a couple things to remember. One, if it feels like it might be a little too tight, but you can kind of force it, then you might want to go just a little bit bigger than that. The other thing that you want to consider is that when you're making a test ring, you want to make sure that you're finding the tightest part of the helmet. Some parts of some helmets are going to be nice and bulky. So like a Mandalorian helmet, it's a big bucket. So there's going to be a lot of grace. You've got other masks like a Spider-Man mask or a Deadpool mask that if you were going to be doing a test ring, there's going to be some parts of that helmet that are going to be a lot tighter than others because you're kind of trying to make this form-fitted piece that's going to fit around your head like clothing almost. So when you're making test rings, make sure you're accounting for that. Make sure you're going to take a test ring of the tightest part of the helmet that you're trying to fit.
And also, too, if you're going to end up adding any padding or anything in the helmet, too, that's going to take up space inside. Are you going to add paddings on the side? Are you going to add it on the top? Are you going to even install a fan for the hotter months when you're out, cosplaying? Sometimes having those luxury items, they take up space in the helmet. That's something you need to be prepared for.
You could use this same approach to pieces like the forearms or the legs of your armor, where you could cut off just the top bit, the tightest bit of your forearm to make sure that you're going to be able to fit your arm in. And you might be able to fit your arm in. But what if you're going to be wearing a flight suit underneath this or something bulky? You got to consider those things. But test rings are a good way to get a rough start and to get a good idea before you start printing off the entire thing. Believe it or not, another way that you can actually scale different parts of your body, in this case we're going to be using the example of a head, you can actually use something that everyone's going to have available to them at home, and that's going to be their humble door. All right, now as silly as this might look, we're actually able to line up a tape measure with the inside of the frame of the door. And Evan's going to go ahead and demonstrate this by kind of closing his head in there. So if we look down here, we can see that we are roughly at just about 7 5/8 or so ish. It's a rough measurement, but Evan, what is your hat size?
That's a 7 5/8.
So that's close enough, but we do have some ways that we're going to get even closer measurements. But hey, if this is what you got, it'll work. Now, if you don't want to use a rough measurement using your door and you'd like to be a little bit more precise than that, you can actually use something called calipers. There's different ways that you can get this, but one great way is if you have a 3D printer, Uncle Jesse actually has files for cosplay calipers that you can print out and you can use to measure the distance from one side of your head to the other, and then you can translate that when you're going to be scaling up and down your armor. I'll include a link to those calipers in today's video as well. Now, another great way to scale the armor to you is actually going to be to take specific measurements of the pieces of your body that you're trying to fit a piece to, and then taking measurements of those pieces in your actual slicer. Let's go to the computer and let's show off a couple of these tools that you can use in Orca Slicer or Bamboo Slicer. All right, so in order to print any file, you're going to have to use a slicer. In this case, I'm going to be using Bamboo Slicer. And there are some useful tools in Bamboo Slicer or Orca Slicer or any of those clones that are going to help you to make some measurements. We're going to show you two different ways that you can do that today. So the first way that we can do this is actually going to be literally the measure tool. So you just click your item that you're looking at, and you see this measuring tool here. You literally click that, select a spot that you're wanting to measure, and then select the spot you want to measure to, and it'll tell you the measurement. So that there is 337 millimeters. Let's say you scaled yourself and you know that you're going to need to have it at 350 millimeters. You can actually scale this and scale it up. And there you go. Now you know from point A to point B, it is 350 millimeters. Super useful tool, great way to scale your armor if you already know your measurements. All right, now another tool within the same program that we're using right now, you can actually tell what the actual maximum height of your print is based on its orientation. So if this is the orientation that we want, and we think that this is about what we're looking at, it's probably going to be a little bit straighter than that. If I want to, I could straighten it just a smidge. Sure, like that. That's about the tallest that it's going to be. If we then click on our STL here, and then we go to scale, you can actually see there's different measurements, okay? There's going to be our X measurement, our Y measurement, but then there's also going to be our Z measurement. And this Z measurement is showing that the maximum height of this print currently is 359 millimeters. So if you know, for example, based on this orientation, again, let's use the example of 350 millimeters, you could turn off uniform scale, go to the Z height, and change that measurement, and it's going to bring it down. So this will allow you, where if you're not wanting to scale the entire thing to be larger or wider or anything like that, you can actually scale this thing so that it's longer or shorter. So especially for limbs, legs, and arms, this is going to be a really useful tool where you're able to still keep those details, and you don't want to make the entire thing larger or smaller. This will allow you to properly scale that piece up and down according to the axis that you're wanting to. So same thing goes for side to side. If you want to make this a little bit wider, you can widen it. Of course, if you go crazy with this, the proportions are going to be a little bit different, but for the most part, most people are going to be making some minor adjustments to this, and this is a wonderful tool within your slicer that you literally have to use to print the piece anyways. So Orca slicer, bamboo slicer, most of those slicers will have a measuring tool of some sort. You can look up on the internet, look up on YouTube to see the specific slicer that you're using if they have a different tool, but for bamboo or Orca, this right here is going to work great for you. Another way that you can actually do this is, believe it or not, to take an actual 3D scan of your body. Now, I will say that this is going to be a hit or miss experience for you. Most of you actually have the ability on your phone to download different 3D scanning apps. I've used this for my head a couple of times, and honestly, some of the apps that I've used have gotten a really great 3D model of my head. The problem is that when I then download that file and then throw it into my slicer, the head's like this small. So while it did capture a beautiful version of my head, it did not scale it, which was kind of the whole purpose of scanning my head. So do your research, play around with it, see if something works for you. I will say that if you're not wanting to go with the mobile route, there are actual 3D scanners that you can buy. Some of them can get pretty expensive. So if it's something that is valuable to you, then that is a route that you can go. I think for a lot of common cosplayers, especially beginner cosplayers, that might not be the best bang for your buck solution. But if you're interested in it, it is fun to think about it, and they're kind of fun to play around with. So keep that in mind, and yeah, scanning your body. That's one way to scale your body. Now, one of the methods that I've actually had a lot of success with when it comes to actually scaling helmets has actually been to find a basic model of just a head on something like Thingiverse or Maker World or wherever you want to find it, and then to take the measurements of your head, scale that dummy's head to the size of your head, and then scale the pieces around it virtually. Let's go ahead and show you what that looks like on the computer.
All right. So this is a really cool feature here. This is something that you can do after you've scaled your head, is to download a free file of a mannequin's head like this. Now, one thing I'm going to recommend about doing as part of this project is changing the color of your mannequin head. This is something that you can do in Bamboo itself. So once you start centering these pieces up, you can actually lay them on top of each other and start seeing, is your piece going to fit your head, your three-dimensional head? As we start scaling this up and down, we can start doing this, and you'll start seeing that color poking through. You're going to see where it's too small, where things are going to be uncomfortable. You can kind of see on the earpieces where it's pushing in. So we're going to have to scale it up just a little bit more and fine tune it in to the sizes that we need.
Now, another thing that you might find is you might get the scaling where it looks just perfect. So let's scale this up just a tiny bit more. Now, I don't see any red peeking through here, but I want to know just how uncomfortable this helmet is going to be. So another thing that you can do is you can use the cut feature in your slicer. And what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to just rotate this, and I'm going to cut this in half. And I'm going to keep only half of it. We're going to keep object A. We're going to keep the orientation. We're going to perform the cut. All right, so now you have this bad boy cut in half. And we can see exactly how our head's going to fit in there. As you can see, yes, it does fit in there. No, it's not poking through, but that is still kind of a snug fit, and I might not be all that comfortable in there. So this is a great feature, a great tool that you can use, is just cutting this bad boy in half and then playing around with it until you think that you're going to be comfortable. So whether that's scaling, or sometimes you'll rotate the item. Oh, rotate the item here to see you got more room to work with. So is this going to be leaning back more, leaning forward more, etc., etc. So yeah, this is another great way that you can get a pretty good idea of whether or not this is going to fit on your head. And that cut tool is going to be the same thing that you're going to use to make the test rings that we talked about earlier. So another awesome tool here within Bamboo Studio that you can use to scale stuff to your body. Now, at this point, we've given you guys a lot of different options for ways that you can scale your armor. And while all of these are fantastic options, my personal favorite option that we're going to be using today is something called Armorsmith.
And yeah, and this is a new concept to me, so I'm actually really excited to learn about this. I've tried multiple different ways to get pieces to scale to fit myself, from just try and fill, and I'm actually excited to learn a new way that's going to make the process of my cosplaying builds and things like that and other prop making a whole lot easier.
Yeah, Armorsmith is a wonderful platform, is a wonderful app that you can use. It is a paid app, but I'll tell you what, it is worth it if you are running into these frustrating issues with scaling issues, because we're going to get a perfectly scaled dummy to this perfectly scaled dummy. But then we're going to be scaling the armor so that it fits perfectly. And this isn't even going to be just like universally scaling. We're going to show you how you can scale your pieces so that maybe they're tall enough, but they need to be a little bit wider, or maybe it needs to be a little bit tighter. We're going to go into all of that. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and roll some awesome time-lapse footage where you're going to see us scaling him using this app called Armorsmith, and then we're going to show you the final product and then show you how the armor fits on that dummy. Now, all right, so here we have Evan's avatar scaled in Armorsmith, and now we get the fun part where we're going to start throwing pieces of armor at this and scaling it to the size of his dummy so that we can figure out what scale he needs to print these on. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go over here to the import page, and we're just going to start with going to our files and pulling up my Helldivers armor set. So we now have a couple of pieces in here. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to grab this chest piece and we're going to attach it. And sometimes this is probably what's going to happen. Sometimes it does it backwards. So we're going to go ahead and attach this, and sure enough, it is attached on his back. So what we're going to do is we are going to rotate this guy at 180 degrees. And then we're just going to slide him forward. And we have the general piece here. So now what we need to do is we need to play around with it to get it to the appropriate size. So we're going to do a combination of both scaling but also rotating and repositioning, because this piece, you want the shoulder and the back to line up well. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and throw the back on there as well right now. And we're going to start scaling them basically the same rate so that they're going to be matching. What you can do even is you could move them so that they're lined up like this. We might do this. So let's go ahead. We've got them fairly well lined up. I want to roll these back ever so slightly. This actually looks really good at 100% scale. But there's also, look at the gap here between his back and the armor. So we're going to roll this back just a little bit. So yeah, okay, I see the problem here. We're clipping into your back just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and grab both of these pieces. I want to scale them up just a little bit. So now that we've got the chest and the back looking pretty good, I think that actually does look really good. Let's go ahead and start with the shoulders. All right, so what I'm thinking is that this probably needs some scaling, but I'm thinking that this doesn't need uniform scaling. I'm thinking that we want to bring it in a little bit tighter. Wait, does that sound
Yeah,
right?
It looks like it's a little wide for me, but the other lengths look pretty good.
So let's turn off uniform scaling, and then we're going to grab this, and we're going to, oh, that's moving. We can literally, so you hit non-uniform scaling there, and then we're going to grab a side, and we're just going to pull it in. So we're a little bit more comfortable. That's looking better. Especially because you want to be able to move your arm up.
Yeah.
What do you think? We want to bring this in a little bit?
You
happy with that?
I think I'm pretty happy with that.
Okay. All right, now we're going to attach the right shoulder. This piece is different than the other one, so my guess is we'll have to scale it very similarly, but it might not need quite the same scaling. And yeah, it looks like it's a little spacious. If you're looking from underneath, there's a lot of room in there. So let's close that up a little bit. Sometimes a piece will be different, so it's okay if it needs to be scaled up or down more. What do you think of that?
Let's go back to that bottom view.
Yep, so we still got some room in there.
Still got a little more wiggle room.
It just depends on how big you want this to be. If you want it to be like perfectly formed around you, if you're wanting to have kind of
leave some room for some padding or.
All right, you like it like that?
I like it like that.
Okay. We're actually going to drop from here down to the knees and the shin and the thighs. So let's go ahead and start with a knee. I think it looks pretty good as is.
Pretty spot on the money there.
To absolutely double check this though, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab the shin right as well. We're going to attach that here. And that will allow us to see how they're fitting together based on the current scaling, and if we want to scale something, whether we want to scale the shin or the knee. My guess is if we're going to scale anything, it's going to be the shin, because usually that could be a little bit taller or a little bit shorter, depending on the person. But yeah, we are having a little bit of overlap here. But we're going to bring that in close to his leg, and we're going to drop it down a little bit. So about there would be a comfortable place to have it. And the pieces are basically right on top of each other. So you're going to have some rubbing. My first inclination here is to shorten the shin just a little bit. And I also might want to widen the shin just a little bit. What do you think, Ev?
I agree with that.
All right. So let's go ahead and scale non-uniform. Let's shorten this just a little bit. We'll go down to like about 90% scale, and we'll go from there. And then from here, we want to widen, because you can literally see it clipping through. Now, this is something that you could fix. Mine was a little bit tight when I printed mine, so I used a heat gun and cleaned it up a little bit. But we want to make this as comfortable as possible. What are you thinking with that piece?
I think it's looking a lot better.
A lot better. I do think that the knee could probably be shrunk just a little bit, and maybe even uniformly shrunk.
Yeah.
Let's drop this down to 95%. See how I feel. So you can see there's literally this detail piece in the knee that you couldn't see before because it was riding into the other one. I'm thinking maybe like 2 more percent, 93. That gives you a little bit more wiggle room. All right, so let's mirror this on the other leg, and then let's add the thighs and see how everything looks together. As you can see currently, this is covering a whole heck of a lot. We don't need so much of that. So it definitely needs to be brought down a little bit on the Y. It probably needs to be brought in just a smidge.
It honestly looks like it could go all the way down to 90%.
Let's try uniform scale down to 90. See what happens. All right, so 90 is a good start. I think I want to widen it. Maybe, well, there's some room back there. Let's move it forward just a bit. Getting pretty good form fitting right there. I honestly think that for the majority here, we just need to do a little bit more on the Y side of things.
Yeah.
Let's shorten this up a little bit. This will make you mad if your legs are shorter than your prints. I had that problem with my Iron Man suit, and it was not pleasant. Something like that. I think that looks just about perfect. What are you thinking?
I agree.
All right. Okay. So the forearm is on here. I'm going to be 100% honest. The forearm is a little tricky to get lined up well. This is actually lined up really well here, so I'm pretty happy with this. But if you see a little bit clipping through, it might not necessarily be the best indication that it's the wrong size, because I thought that one of them was going to be too tight, and I printed it, it was actually too big. The nice thing with the forearm is you can actually easily print a test ring here. I do think that that's going to be a little bit on the thick side. So we're going to uniform scale, and we're going to bring it down, let's say 97%. And then Evan's going to take this home, and he's going to play around with it, and he's going to test it. And if that doesn't work, if he prints a test print and he realizes that the hole is really large and really easy for his hand to poke through, then he might, try it a little bit smaller, try it a little bit larger, whatever he needs to do. But this right here is a great starting point. Okay, so it's a bit of a tedious process. It does take some time, but it is 100% worth it. Now, you've put all that work into scaling your armor. The first thing that you want to do is you want to save everything. Make notes, export your pieces, say it is this X, this Y, this Z, whatever you need to do to make sure that you know exactly what you did and how you need to print it. because it is so frustrating when you put all this work into it and then you something happens and you lose those files or those notes, and then you just have to start the entire process all over again. So make sure you're making notes. All right, so like Evan said earlier in today's video, you're gonna make some mistakes while you're working on this, and that's okay. Sometimes you'll print something and maybe it's not quite the right fit for you. That doesn't mean it's not gonna fit somebody else, maybe a little bit better.
Yeah, and this is something that fits a little bit closer to me. So if you are partnering up with someone on a project, some of those pieces could fit, but maybe you're also working by yourself. Still, save these pieces. This is something that you can experiment on later. Now, I've talked about multiple times about how I've printed things out and they've always failed, and I just have to try again. But I'd save these pieces. This is something that I can improve my sanding techniques on. This is something that you can go and practice paint on. Just because paint in the store looks really good, you can buy that paint, bring it home, put it on your project, and realize, man, this isn't the color I want. And now you're not wasting the piece that actually fits you. You have a piece that's just used for everything else. I've even used parts of other projects as something that I've tried different sanding techniques on and different painting techniques on, to come up with a crazy experiment and different things like that.
Now, another thing that you could use this for could potentially be during a PLA welding project. Now, we're not going to talk about PLA welding in today's video in detail, but you could find yourself trying to, fuse some pieces together using PLA welding, and sometimes those welds need some reinforcement. Believe it or not, you could actually take apart parts of this and cut out pieces and use that to reinforce. This guy was not printed all in one piece, I'll tell you that. And there are some welds on the inside of this, and those welds need reinforcing so that if this thing falls, it's not going to fall into pieces. So sometimes having scrap pieces can even be used to reinforce the good pieces that you did succeed with. So sometimes you'll print something and it might not be quite perfect, but it's really, really close. This helmet, for example, when I printed this guy, it almost fit me. It was just a tiny bit too tight. So do you think I went and threw away this entire helmet? Nah, we've got a solution for that. To solve this problem, we're going to use
fire.
That's right. We can use a heat gun to soften our prints and make them fit a little bit better. But believe it or not, there's a right way and a wrong way to do this.
This is obviously the wrong way. You want to make sure that you're, one, doing this in a well-ventilated area. Two, don't expose your prints to too much heat too fast. You want to set your settings as low as possible, and you can warm it up from there. You're just trying to get the piece malleable and move it into a shape that is more comfortable.
So do a little bit at a time. Sometimes it gets softer quicker than you would expect. Also be considerate of what surface you're working on. So I have cheap plastic tables, and I was heating something up, and I bent my little portable cutting mat, and I ended up melting through my table a little bit. So be considerate of that. Another thing to consider is that if you don't have a heat gun, you can actually use a hairdryer for this. It's going to take a little bit longer because it's not going to put out quite as much heat as your heat gun is, but a hairdryer is something that is a good alternative, and I have used it before I got a heat gun. But this heat gun was like 15, 20 bucks at Harbor Freight. So if you want a heat gun, go check them out at Harbor Freight. This guy does the job just well. So after a small investment of our time, we were able to make a dummy for Evan and then scale all the armor to him. So now he has everything that he needs to go home and start printing his own Helldivers suit.
Yeah, I'm super excited to take some of the information that I've learned today and go put it into practice.
Now, while Evan has been in and out of the channel here, you've seen him in the intros and the outros. You've seen him in the video where I debuted the Iron Man suit. Seen him walking around there as Star-Lord. This has actually been Evan's first project with me, and we're going to continue to be working on projects together. But Evan, where can the people find you when you're not here hanging out with Pratt Printing Press?
Yeah, so I have a relatively new channel on Instagram. It's called Whiskey Creates. It's one of those things I like to pour myself a glass of whiskey and work on some projects. That could be from cosplaying, woodworking, and around the house.
Awesome. We're super excited to see what projects you come up with next, and super excited to continue working on this project together.
Yeah.
For all of my viewers here, I just want to thank you guys for your continued support. If you would, please drop the like button, hit that subscribe, and click that bell icon. That way you never miss any of the new uploads here on the channel. We appreciate you guys, and we just love making new videos for you guys. Now, as we said earlier, this is just part one of this Helldivers series that we're going to be working on together. We decided to just start with the basics of figuring out which files we're going to use, scaling them, and printing them. So we've got some really exciting stuff coming up. We're going to talk about sanding, painting, fitment, We're going to talk about the soft bits. So we're talking about like capes and belts and buckles and skirts and all that fun stuff we're going to be working on here on the Pratt Printing Press channel.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
How big is your printer if you are 3D printing? I know me in particular, I have a pretty small printer, whereas you probably have some bigger printers here. Gosh, shut up. Just aside.
Oh gosh.
We're going to take it from the top.